The move after Vavi refused to step down. He had also announced his intention to boycott the meeting. The Central Executive Committee had expected Vavi to explain why he had boycotted the last meeting and reveal to the media Cosatu's internal processes and finances. It also wanted to know why he distanced himself from its decision to expel NUMSA. After NUMSA was expelled and 7 other unions suspended their participation in the CEC, Vavi faced a hostile CEC that supported President Dlamini. It's unlikely Vavi will go out quietly after he vowed to mobilize workers for what he calls reclaiming Cosatu. He will need to win their hearts and minds to appeal his expulsion at the National Conference later this year. Well, for more on the story, we're now joined on the line by SABC contributing editor Vuyo Mvoko. Very good morning to you, Vuyo. What do you make of the latest developments at Cosatu? Surely it shouldn't come as a surprise to many people that Cosatu would want to expel their General Secretary.
Well, not at all. It's not a surprise at all, Valent. But still, until last night, I think many South Africans were still hoping to see a more mature, pragmatic Cosatu leadership that was perhaps a little wiser than the people who met at Cosatu House yesterday. But I mean, how on earth do you prioritize the expulsion of your General Secretary when you have more than half your members outside the federation? I thought that even tactically, the people who were sitting at Cosatu House yesterday would sort of look at that and say maybe we shouldn't go ahead with what everyone knew was what they wanted to do anyway. But people thought they would be, a little bit more circumspect than they actually were. But yes, you were right. It didn't come as a surprise.
What does Vavi take with him as he leaves the Labour Federation?
Well, I think he is going to take away, obviously, Cosatu is divided right down the middle as things stand. But more tragically, perhaps, is that he will take with him or the processes that may follow from what happened yesterday will mean that a big part of South Africa actually has been lost, not just of Cosatu. Because Cosatu, remember, has been an important voice in the struggle for a better life for poor people in this country. Cosatu, even though it was primarily advancing the interests of its more than 2 million members, it also advanced the plight of poor people, because Cosatu, right from its inception, said that the same worker who's exploited on the factory floor is the same worker who still has to trudge home to less than ideal living conditions 20 years into democracy as we speak. So it's not just Cosatu that's going to lose. It's not that just the Vavis and the Dlaminis and the Evan James and those people who are going to be at each other's throats and fighting over, nothing really at the end of the day. But the people who will have lost are the workers themselves who belong to Cosatu, but more importantly, the poor people of this country. And that, I think, is what we should be focusing on. Other people who are interested in that voice, staying alive and being heard, should actually focus on that and see if there's nothing that can be done, even perhaps at this late stage.
And Vuyo, one would argue that that is Cosatu's core business, to look after the workers. Now let's actually look at the Federation. Where do they go from here, and what's their relevance under the current climate?
Look, a lot has gone wrong. From, neglecting what were their own conference's resolution to focus on vulnerable workers, to focus on young workers, their conscience, labor broking, the casualization or informalization of work, the plight of women in the workplace, and so on. But also, it's an open secret that Cosatu's leadership is also, in contravention of its own constitution, which says that they should call, that CEC, Central Executive, should call a special Congress if a third of their 19 affiliates ask them to do so. So there's a lot that has gone wrong. But perhaps to try and answer a question more directly, everyone, I think, has to go back to the drawing board. And if there's anyone, in fact, who has proved capable of doing that before, it is Cosatu's general membership, incidentally. Why do I say so? Because when the ugly fights reared their head at prior or in the run-up to Cosatu's last conference, and those fights were threatening to divide the federation, the membership stood up and refocused their leaders. Instead of the blood on the floor that some of their leaders had promised, the membership showed that they cared more about core worker issues than with petty and egoistic Dlamini and Vavi fights. They got these leaders to work together and to focus on their core responsibilities. So I think that what needs to happen now is for Cosatu to actually even bring closer, perhaps, that much awaited special Congress. And I think that special Congress will give a better and focused sort of leadership, but also will perhaps reprioritize and do what is supposed to be done. I don't see your Vavis and your Dlaminis and your Evan Jims actually doing that at the moment. The ANC also, which is supposed to be bigger than all of them, has tried, but unsuccessfully, to actually bring these warring factions together. So I think that a special Congress will bring more focus and a better direction than these leaders have been able to do.
All right, thank you very much. That's Vuyo Mvoko, SABC's contributing editor, chatting to us about the expulsion of Zwelinzima Vavi.